French and friends, back here, we are discussing the upcoming mayoral election here in Evanston. That is on the 28th, and we're rounding out our series here, and we welcome Steve Hagerty, owner of Hagerty Consulting, and obviously mayoral candidate, or you wouldn't be here otherwise. Good to see you, Steve.
It's good to see you. Thanks for having me.
It's been great to meet you today. We're showing you around our facility here. All right, big election day coming up, an important time for the city of Evanston. The nation in a bit of a tight spot right now, but that doesn't mean that we think that everything comes from D.C. Remember, all politics is local, is it not?
Indeed.
So let's start with the city here. You've got a lot of experience in business and, of course, working with the government in many different capacities. Disaster response. I enjoy talking to you about my former state of Louisiana. How's that going for you?
It's been great. I mean, I really valued spending the last 24 years of my career helping communities around the country prepare for and recover from disasters. And the company's grown over the years, and it's really at a point where I can pivot from helping people on their worst day to helping the community that I live in every day, which is very appealing to me.
And what did you learn? I mean, you having to work with various government agencies over the years, what did you learn that you will hopefully apply to the mayor's office here in Evanston?
Well, I certainly learned a lot about getting billions of dollars of funding to communities all around this country, and every community is in need of funding. So I think we need to make sure we get everything that our city's entitled to under different federal grants. And I certainly developed an understanding of municipal government operations, how police departments work, fire departments, public works, building departments, water, sewer, all of that. After a disaster, all of that type of infrastructure is damaged. And so you develop a pretty good understanding of how government works.
How are we in Evanston right now with the communications between the various departments, whether it be police, the mayor's office, and all those arms that make government hum?
Yeah, I mean, from the outside, it seems like I think the city's on a pretty good track.
Sure
I don't think the city needs a hard right or hard left. I do think it needs someone that has a steady hand and is a proven leader, and someone with business sense and common sense and compassion and good judgment and the right balance of all of those. And I think I have that. Obviously, having started a business and grown a business over the year, I know the importance of communication both within an organization and externally to your other stakeholders and to the public. And I'm anxious to get into the mayor's role and try to help internally as well as externally with communication.
Steve Hagerty joins us. He is running for mayor of Evanston. You can find out more at stevehagerty.com. When I walk the streets, I see very few unoccupied buildings right now, which seems like a good. Are we in good shape from a business standpoint, or there's some things that should be worked on here?
No, I think Evanston's a really attractive place for businesses to be. We've got a great university, one of the finest in the world. We've got a dynamic downtown. We've got public transportation. We've got great schools. We've got a beautiful lake. So we have a lot of attractive qualities. We don't have a ton of vacancies downtown, so that's certainly a challenge. There's some conversations going on right now about the parking lot that's next to the library, a very convenient parking lot. I love that parking lot, about whether it could be used for commercial office space so that we can continue to attract, mid-sized businesses to Evanston, as well as, I think, startup businesses. Here we are sitting in your studio. Somebody started this up someday, and now we've got, a half a dozen people or more that work here. I started mine 15 years ago. It was me. And now we've got 150 people working on projects around the country and 20 that are in downtown Evanston. So we have this great opportunity, because of all the knowledge and the talent that's in this community, to have folks here start businesses and grow those businesses, which I think is exciting, and I think we need to keep focused on.
And what are some of our infrastructure needs in Evanston that, long-term thinking that you may want to put into place and kickstart?
Yeah. So I think on the infrastructure side, we need to have more investment into our parks and recreation here in Evanston. There is an effort underway to build a new Crown Center, Robert Crown Center, which is really the big community center here in Evanston. And so I think that has to be one area of focus these days, because there are so many more needs than there are money in a community. I think we've got to look at opportunities for public-private partnerships, and how can we inspire private philanthropy to invest in some of these capital projects that we need. And we're going to be successful, I think, in doing that with the Robert Crown Center and getting a new one. Second area is certainly with our water department. Here, we are certainly going to need some further investments and upgrades to the water department. The great thing is that I think the city council and Mayor Tisdale have done a nice job over the last several years looking for opportunities to sell our water to other communities, right? Wow. We just signed a deal with Niles and Morton Grove. We've been selling to Skokie. That that contract's going to come up for renewal actually in a couple of years. And it's been a great deal for Skokie, and we need a better deal for Evanston moving forward. So that'll be a interesting negotiation. But those are two areas where there's infrastructure investments that are needed. I mean, again, you can drive around Evanston. We certainly have some roads that need investment as well.
You had mentioned that, money is really hard to come by right now. What can we do when the funds from the federal government, aren't necessarily what they used to be, and we're kind of concerned about where they may be in the future? Let's just, for the sake of argument, say there is a massive tax cut across the country as is being bandied about. To my pocketbook, that sounds great, but I understand what that means. If the government is not bringing in as much money because they're not taking it from me, it could be tough times for us.
Absolutely. I think there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty right now about what's going to happen in Washington, D.C. And we get all sorts of federal grants. We get them from HUD for Community Development Block Grant, which helps us with housing and some of the other economic development that we do here. We get them from the Department of Transportation. The project we just did at Emerson and Ridge, that was done with DOT funding that passed through the state. So the reality is we're living in uncertain times, and therefore I think more than ever, we need to look at the assets and the resources that we have here in Evanston and ask ourselves, how can we best use these? I mean, the reality is our state is broke. It's in the worst fiscal condition of any state in America, which is just a terrible, terrible situation. B, our state income taxes will increase. It's only a matter of time. The only way out of that problem is to cut and to increase taxes. And then third, we have a governor that's, has very few choices. And so he's threatening to reduce the amount of aid that goes to local governments and goes to schools, which would affect our schools. So to me, we've got to, continue to make this a place where people want to come here and do business. We have to, I totally respect that we have opposition to things in this community. I want to make sure that all perspectives are heard when we have different projects or potential projects that could happen in this community, because when we say no to something, and again, it's okay to say no to something, right, but when we do, we're basically maybe not realizing it, but we may be saying, yes, I'm okay with higher property taxes, right? And as I go around, I talk to a lot of people say, gosh, the property taxes are so high in Evanston. If these continue to go up, I'm not going to be able to afford to live in Evanston anymore. I'm going to have to move out. And so, I think it's getting someone who's a mayor who is focused on the revenue side of the equation and what we can do with our assets and our resources. And I think I'm well equipped to do that, given my background as an entrepreneur and a business owner, and a unique business owner in that I've worked with government for 24 years.
Yeah. It helps. I mean, you got to know the system. Okay, one of the things that that really kind of tugged at my heart, but unfortunately, I think it's been solutions to this problem have really resided in academia and just kind of hopeful, wishful thinking, and that is the disparity in incomes between African Americans in Evanston. This is, of course, a nationwide issue, but and other groups. One of our friends at Northwestern, I can't think of his last name right now, so I'll spare him. It was something crazy like 137,000 for whites, or 117 perhaps, and under 50 for African Americans. I mean, beyond just our wishful thinking to make this better, have you heard any practical solutions to this that you may be amenable to?
Sure. The other statistic I'd throw out there is that Evanston prides itself on the diversity of Evanston. In the last 10 years, we've lost 3,000 African Americans from this community. And part of that is a socioeconomic issue. And the state of Illinois also has the highest unemployment rate of African Americans of any state in the country. It's at 15%. We shouldn't assume that doesn't also apply to Evanston. Right. And so, when you run for mayor and you go around and you talk to lots of people in the community, or you talk to folks that live, let's say, in the fifth ward of Evanston, what are the three big issues that came up? Affordability, jobs, and economic development within their own community. And so what do I think? I think that we need to make sure that we have some workforce development programs here in this community that can help people who are unemployed or underemployed gain the skills necessary, because we have a complete disconnect between a market out there that has needs, okay, and people out there that need jobs, but it's not a match. So I think workforce development is an area that we need to be focused on for those that are or underemployed here in our community. I also think we need to, when I talk about looking at the assets that we have earlier, we need to look at, Northwestern University. We have 2 major hospitals here. I mean, we have right across the street, a major employer here, a manufacturer of 300 plus jobs. I think we need to work with our major employers in town and say, hey, what can you help us to increase the level of employment for some of those in our community that are underemployed? And there's a great program. Northwestern just started up the skilled trades program. In fact, it was we awarded them a big award at the mashup this past year, and and it's a small program. It started off with a half a dozen young men, but 4 of them now are in a trade union with the university, and these folks are on a path to have a nice productive life and career, and that's what people want.
No doubt. One of the things I've said, speaking of a trade, you mentioned trade unions, but I've often wondered, when you get off the bridge from Indiana going into Chicago, there's that wonderful, rotting husk of what used to be the vocational school. And I've kind of, and this is more just an overview, I guess. Suppose, I don't know that I have any practical solutions to this either, but I've just wondered, at some point we got the idea that everybody was going to become a college graduate, and it's a noble cause, but I know some of my best friends who have been very successful are not necessarily college graduates. We're not all going to sell shiny financial instruments that very few people understand. There are real things, real ways to make a trade. Is that kind of where maybe we could do better by some of the youth here, not pretending that we all need to dress up and try to get to Wall Street?
I agree 100%, Dan. Yeah. 100%. So, we talked about the Evanston mashup last September. The other award that we gave at the Evanston mashup was to the work ethic program, which is a new program that was started by Hecky Powell and a woman named Nancy Baker right here in town, which is sort of like Evanston Scholars, which is to work with first-time families that have never had a parent go to college, but to help those kids, succeed in college. And the whole premise of the work ethic program is, like you said, not everybody's going to go to college, or college isn't right for everybody. And the fact of the matter is there's lots of college grads out there who don't have great job prospects and aren't making that much money. And yet some of these trades, that's a great job. If you become a plumber, you become an electrician,
good money.
You become a technician in a studio like this. I mean, it's a good job, and it's a good career, and we ought to work to help students that are graduating from ETHS, find opportunities there. So that's why I'm a big supporter of the work ethic program, a big supporter of we have a technical vocation component of ETHS, and I absolutely think we need to do that, and we shouldn't just think that everybody needs to go to college, because there are opportunities. The other thing I would say is there was an interesting article, I don't know if it was in the Atlantic recently, that talked about the future of blue collar jobs may actually be in the area of coding.
Wow. Yeah. That's now a blue collar job. Fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, there's this whole body of research that's saying that with some technical training, you don't have to go to college. You can be a coder. And look, you're not going to do the algorithms that the folks at Google do and Microsoft and all of that. But you can have a career where you're making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. And they really think over the next 20 years, you're going to see that. And that makes sense to me. You're seeing all sorts of academies opening up that are coding academies. And so we shouldn't just look at the trades being, oh, you're going to be an electrician or a plumber, because with technology these days, there's a great opportunity to go into to something like a basic level of coding.
Yeah, it really is fascinating to me, because I know a lot of the I guess the tenor of the times is negative, but I tend to be positive. I think we're going to be in great shape. I think, this is maybe birthing pains, but we'll have a beautiful newborn, hopefully coming soon. And to your point about coding or just some of these new industries that are being created, because, we can talk about manufacturing all we want, but we know which way the wind blows. A lot of this will be, robotics and automated. Yeah, totally. But as far as, the brains, these are skills that my generation, only a few of us have, is who is the person who can come into my radio station and recognize that there are fewer AM radio listeners being born? How do we use all these outlets out there and figure out the ones who our message will resonate with? And they're going to be spread out over myriad outlets. I mean, I can think of probably a dozen different platform outlets where this show is heard, but how are we identifying those people so that we can keep in touch with them the whole time while we're doing the show?
Sure.
It's fascinating. Anyway, I'm positive about the future of Evanston. That's for certain. I live in Chicago. My wife's been telling me lately, she was like, why are we not living in Evanston? Schools are great, low crime, right next to the lake. It's beautiful. The restaurants are fantastic. You know a ton of people, and you work there. And I'm increasingly finding fewer and fewer reasons to not take her up on that.
I like your wife.
Well, me too. Steve Hagerty, owner of Hagerty Consulting, Evanston mayoral candidate. The election is on the 28th. You need to participate, friends. It's simple. I love when people say, well, you can't complain because you didn't participate. Well, I don't know. You just got to do it. I'm looking forward to it, Steve. I wish you all the continued success and good luck on the 28th.
Terrific. Thanks for having me.
French and Friends, more coming up.